LucyLuck, and typically on this channel I like to play non-traditional cozy games and make them cozy. But to kick off the new year, I thought it would be fun to do something a little different. One of my favorite games to come out this past year was Baldur's Gate 3, which is a game with so many incredible characters and creatures. But my absolute favorite creatures are the cats, especially Gale's Tressym, Tara. So I thought it could be fun to do a low relief carving of a Tressym. I'll be talking about the process a bit, but we're mostly just gonna have a nice, cozy art evening, rambling and relaxing. Before transferring my design, I like to apply a light gray wash to the wood so I'm able to see the carved areas a bit better. This wash is a combination of water and black gouache and will create some much needed contrast. Most of the woodcuts that I do are inspired by folklore, traditional tattooing, and or medieval bestiaries. For this one, I decided to go the medieval route. If you're not familiar with them, bestiaries are these beautiful historical encyclopedias full of paintings and descriptions of animals, both real and mythical. They were most popular in Northern Europe during the Middle Ages. I'm a massive art history buff, but my favorite thing about these illustrated texts was the fact that some of the animals looked absolutely ridiculous. My favorite works are the ones in which the artist was merely going off a description of what the animal looked like, rather than ever having seen them, which makes for some incredibly fun paintings. So this is how I imagine someone in the Middle Ages might have depicted a Tressym. After letting the wash dry completely, I place my design that's been printed on label paper face down where I'd like it to be and tape it in place. Once it's been taped, I peel back the design to apply a thin coat of gel gloss medium. I make sure to do this as quickly and evenly as possible, as it dries relatively quickly. With that applied, we can now put our design in its intended position. To ensure there are no air bubbles and eliminate any excess medium, I take a bone folding tool and gently push it across the surface for an even transfer. I then allow it to dry for at least 4 hours while I play Baldur's Gate and For Honor, then very carefully peel it back. So this method is not always perfect. Sometimes I'll need to go in with a Sharpie to touch up any areas that were missed. After that's done, I stare at the piece until I hate everything about it. Alright, it's not too bad. It's a little glossy, making the design tough to see. The wood's a little dark, and I messed up the design a bit during touch-up, but It's fine. I'm not a perfectionist. Alright, maybe I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I did it all over again. This time I used a different type of MDF that was lighter in color and a bit more compact. I also used matte medium instead of gloss gel to reduce thickness and shine, making it easier to see the design and carve through. With our design now transferred, we can begin to carve this sweet girl. Woodcut carving like this is more often used for woodblock printmaking, and while I do love printmaking, I more so enjoy making what would be the stamp, the work of art itself. I also have to preface that this is MDF and not solid wood, making it easier to carve, but can also be more difficult to carve finer details. It's also incredibly absorbent, but I'm going to do my very best to make this look as nice as possible with the materials and experience that I have. I would still consider myself fairly new to this process, but it's something that has brought me a lot of peace over the past few years. I took a couple printmaking courses in college where I learned how to carve for lino-cut printmaking, and I always enjoyed the process, but I never pursued it much until the pandemic. At that time, everyone was getting into new hobbies: reading, knitting, bread making, Wordle. And I tried all of those things, but didn't quite have the attention span for most of them. But I found I had the perfect attention span for two things: video games and carving. I don't even quite remember how I ended up carving. Everything is such a blur from that time, but I think I just really loved Red Dead and wanted to make some fan art. And for some reason, my mind went straight to carving the fan art instead of doing anything easier. But it stuck. There's just something so satisfying and grounding about chipping away the design one bit at a time. I'm not sure if I will be doing this often on the channel, but I just wanted to share the experience with you, if only for a little while. I believe I've said in a previous video that the ASMR I've been drawn to lately is either soft-spoken or unintentional. And some of my favorite unintentional ASMR is of this process. So perhaps if it makes for good unintentional sleepiness, it'll make for good intentional sleepiness. So, if you do really enjoy this, let me know in the comments below, and perhaps I'll do more fun video game inspired woodcuts down the line. I will say, though, this takes quite a bit of time, as you can probably tell by my upload schedule. I haven't quite mastered the art of multitasking for YouTube consistency, but that is one of my goals this year. But with that being said, I love working on these, especially when my mind is feeling particularly overstimulated. Sometimes with ADHD, my brain can feel really loud, or like everything's moving too impossibly fast to process. But this process always has a way of bringing me back, one bit at a time. Sometimes certain games can do the same, but there's nothing like making a cup of chai tea, lighting a candle, and listening to some good music while carving. And I apologize ahead of time if you happen to hear what music I'm listening to. It's likely not the genre one would expect. One of my favorite ways of completing tasks is through a technique called body doubling. I often hear it described as having another person in the room with you to hold you accountable, but what I like to do is host music hangouts in my Discord. In these hangouts, we have a music queue where everyone can add and enjoy their favorite songs with one another and just hang out, listen, and sometimes get stuff done. These sessions make any mundane task fun, and any fun tasks even better. So if you do happen to hear what's going on in my headset, that's probably what you're hearing. A beautiful mix of Billy Idol, A Tribe Called Quest, System of a Down, and Rammstein. We very rarely stick to a certain genre, but it's always great. It's nice meeting people from all over the world who share an appreciation for good music in every genre. But we couldn't help but laugh at the reality of me creating a relaxing ASMR woodcut video while listening to metal. During this time, I also watched a couple awesome Nexpo videos. These videos never cease to amaze, inspire, and completely terrify me. But I won't talk about them because this is a space you come to after you've watched something spooky. If you're not familiar with this work, though, he does a lot of great YouTube talks about ARGs, analog horror, and dark internet stories. I've found that it's best for an insomniac like me to just stick to the interesting ARG videos, though, at least at nighttime. But I'm beginning to ramble a bit now. That's okay, though. This isn't necessarily an instructional video by any means. If anything, if you have a similar craft, I'd love to hear what I could work on. I struggle with priming and paint application application the most, which we will get to later on. I just haven't quite found the best process for that. So this is a bit more of an experimentation. I'd likely have an easier time on linoleum or actual wood, but this has just been the most affordable and accessible material for me. I used to find myself completely avoiding the artistic process if I didn't have the best equipment or materials, but sometimes the best work can come from doing what you can with what you have. It definitely challenges you to think outside the box and find new creative ways of doing things. And my mind is certainly more at peace when I'm creating. So if you're considering a creative project of your own, just do it. You don't need the best brushes or software or ink or camera. Just have fun. I had an art teacher that was insistent that if you create a perfect work of art, rip it up. My interpretation of that was that perfection is boring, but who knows? Maybe he just didn't want to see his students succeed. But I found that to rarely be the case. I had the occasional insecure professor, but what artist isn't a little insecure? I certainly am, although it's something I often strive to find balance in. It's good to have self-awareness and acknowledge where one may be falling short. But to what end? There have been so many times I've made something objectively great, but never allowed myself to celebrate it. So here's your calling to enjoy your wins. You may not be a creative, but you almost always have something worth celebrating. Maybe you made it to work on time. Maybe you did the dishes today. Or maybe you didn't do any of that, but managed to take a shower. Those are things worth celebrating. The fact you are watching this video means you've taken an interest in allowing yourself to rest and relax. And sometimes that in itself is enough. Tomorrow will be a new day. But that's enough of our motivational portion of this evening. Maybe. Most of the things I say of that nature are merely words I'm needing to affirm for myself. The last thing I want you to think is that I'm any sort of figure of inspirational wholesomeness authority. I have my good moments, but that's simply a platform I can't see myself living up to 100% all of the time. And who can really? I just strive to ask myself 5 things when I make a video. Is it playful? Is it compassionate? Is it reflective? Is it curious? And is it connecting? Those are my core values, and if I can say yes to any of those questions, great. If I fall short, that's just humanness, baby. Anyway, it's good to see you, and I hope you had a great New Year's. I'm certainly full of optimism for the coming months and look forward to the journey with y'all. I've been getting more comments that we are so ready for another Baldur's Gate 3 video, and I can't wait to get started. I just don't know what to do yet, so let me know if you have any ideas in the comments below. In my last playthrough, I was a chaotic neutral dark urge. The one before that, a misunderstood neutral good bimbo drow. So what's next? Lawful evil, perhaps? I really love being drows or tieflings, but perhaps I can try something else this time. Maybe a high elf warlock or something. I love creating my characters with mods quite a bit, but they kinda messed up my last game, so I may have to go vanilla this time around. Alternatively, I could risk it all for fashion and make sure to never upgrade my game. Tough call. I've always wanted to make a character that looks like Mizora or Daemalin, though. I love winged creatures, or winged characters, rather, but I'm also obsessed with Mizora's horns and Daemalin's beautiful golden cracked skin. It reminds me a lot of kintsugi, which is the Japanese art of repairing pottery in a way that embraces its flaws and imperfections. I'm almost certain that's what they meant to emulate. I think that's a super cool detail for a character like her. So yeah, more Baldur's Gate is happening. I'm also finally working on a Patreon where I can create more custom content based on the community's votes, upload more behind the scenes stuff, and provide early access to videos. Hopefully this will allow me to dedicate more time to the channel, continue to provide a high quality experience, and connect with y'all a bit more. But of course I have a bit more organizing to do before we get there, and I'll make sure to announce when it's ready. It may be a lofty goal for this year, but I'd love to get to a place where I can do this full time. This channel and community brings me so much joy, and I can't imagine a better space to dedicate my time and energy. This is very precious to me, so if you ever see me falling behind on uploads, just know it's not because I don't want to be here. Alright, I've now carved out all the details of our little Tressym. Yay! I'm super excited about this. I know it's only been around 20 minutes for you, but that took at least 3 hours or so for me. also sought out the design off camera because that is probably the least cozy thing I could record. I've received a few requests, but chainsaw ASMR has not been one of them. But with the design carved, cut, and primed, we can move on to painting. I'm using this block printing ink. I don't know if this is the best ink to use on MDF, but I like how rich and satiny it's looked on previous projects. And since I've primed the wood, I don't think we will run into any issues. Like I said at the beginning of this video, though, MDF is so absorbent, so I may need more than one coat. But before we do that, I like to let it dry and go over the carving again to continue carving out any light areas the roller touched. This way, during the next coat, there isn't nearly as much buildup to worry about carving through. After a couple coats of paint, I made sure to seal the piece with a nice markable spray varnish. This will protect the carving as well as give it some shine and contrast. And now she's all done. I had a great time sharing this process with you, and hope you all enjoyed today's video. Let me know in the comments if this is something you'd like to see more of in the future. But next time we are most certainly gaming. Sweet dreams, and I look forward to seeing you